Okay, so now that we spent a week practicing how to write your introduction, we're actually going to get into an informational performance task. Now, technically, the very first time we go through this, I'm supposed to model the whole thing for you. But I know how hard it is for you to sit there and listen to that when we're in class. So it's probably twice as hard to sit there and listen to me go through the whole thing when you're at home. So we're going to do something a little bit different. I am going to model for you, but you are going to have to do a little bit of work yourself each day on this as well. I'm going to go through and explain things and remind you how to do things, but I am going to have you do parts of each task, parts of the task each day. All right, so here's the informational performance task. I am going to read it to you, the directions to you. Go ahead and follow along. All right, so your class has been learning about inventors and how they put their plans into action. Now your school newspaper is creating a special edition about inventions. Your teacher has asked you to write an informational article about the process of turning an idea into an invention. Before you begin, you do some research and find 2 articles that provide information about famous inventors and 1 article about how to get a patent for your invention. After you have reviewed these sources, you will answer some questions about them. Briefly scan the sources and the 3 questions that follow. Then go back and read the sources carefully to gain the information you will need to answer the questions and finalize your research. You will take notes on the information you find in the sources as you read. Your notes will be available to you as you answer the questions. All right, so part 1, of course, is we're going to look at the sources. And when we look at the sources, I'm going to remind you how to take notes, and I'm going to have you actually take notes. Because like I said, I'm going to model the process, but I want you to actually be doing this as well, going along with me. Because I think if we go through this once and I remind you how to do it, I think you'll be okay to do the next one basically on your own. I'll still guide you through videos, but I think you can do the next one on your own. Okay, so remember, the first thing to keep in mind before we even read the articles and to take notes is to remember what your task is going to be, so you can think of that when you're deciding which notes to pull out. All right, so where are we here? All right, so here it is. There it is. So your teacher has asked you to write an informational article about the process of turning an idea into an invention. So I just kind of wrote over that. So let me do this. So again, you want to make sure that you know what your task is going to be, what you're going to write about. Because if you're not constantly thinking about what your topic is, then you might pull out notes that don't matter. You might start writing off topic. All right. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to read you the first article, the first source, remind you how to take notes, and then I'm going to have you take notes on source 1. All right, so George Nissen. When George Nissen was 16 years old, he saw something that sparked an invention. George saw a trapeze act at the circus. The trapeze artist would twirl and swing from ropes and swings high in the air, while beneath them was a safety net. Sometimes the trapeze artist would bounce down onto the safety net on purpose and then do somersaults. George thought it looked like fun, especially if they could find a way to continue bouncing and performing somersaults. This sparked an idea that would take George on a lifelong journey. George was particularly interested because he enjoyed gymnastics and swimming. The nets reminded him of jumping off a diving board. He decided to take on the challenge of creating something that would allow someone to continuously bounce. In his parents' garage, George's first attempts resulted in a stretched canvas sheet inside a metal frame. Later in college, George improved his bouncing rig with the help of his gymnastics teacher, Larry Griswold. This time he used a nylon sheet which allowed for better bouncing. George and 2 acrobat friends made a traveling show called The Three Leonardos that utilized their new bouncing rig. When they were traveling and performing in Mexico, George came up with the name trampoline. Trampoline means diving board in Spanish. He just added an E. George thought the trampoline was wonderful. In 1942, he founded a trampoline company and spent years traveling around the world showing off what people could do on trampolines. He held competitions for rebound tumbling, the original name of trampoline competitions. He thought it would be neat if people could compete on trampolines in the Olympics. He invented games such as Spaceball, a combination between basketball and volleyball. He even rented a kangaroo to bounce with him in Central Park. He sometimes would go to extreme lengths to promote his invention. In 1997, he performed acrobatics atop a flat-top pyramid in Egypt. Finally, he got his wish to see trampolines in the Olympics. In the year 2000, trampoline gymnastics became an Olympic sport. George went to watch at the Olympics that year. He was invited to try out the trampoline the athletes would use. He did. He was 86 years old. All right. Oh, puppy. Okay. So that's the first source. But I just want to remind you for when you take your notes now. Okay. So first and most important again, before you take notes on any source, you want to remind yourself what the topic is, what you're going to have to write about. So you may even want to write that down somewhere. That's my scribble. That's me writing. Right above each source, something to remind yourself. When I was in school, constantly went back to the directions and kept reminding myself. So you're going to be writing an informational article about the process of turning an idea into an invention. All right. So a quick reminder about notes. You never want to write complete sentences. You want to write Tarzan talk, and you want to make sure you have a subject and a verb, because usually that will help you turn that into a complete sentence later on when you have to write. The other thing to remember is notes are for you and you only. All right. It doesn't matter if I understand them, as long as you write down a couple words and you could turn those words into a complete sentence later. As long as you understand what it means, that's all that matters, all right? So if I start reading, for example, and I start reading about George Nissen was 16, he saw something that sparked an invention, okay? Remember, you just want to write down the key facts. So I don't necessarily need to know that George Nissen was 16 years old, right? But he did have an idea for an invention, all right? So maybe you want to write that down, maybe you don't, all right? The trapeze artist would twirl and swing from ropes while beneath a safety net. Sometimes the trapeze artists, all right? So maybe since it's about how to take an idea into an invention, maybe you do want to write down that something about that he had an idea for a trampoline after watching the circus, right? So again, I'm not going to be, this is my only example I'm going to give you, but reminder. So if I wanted to write that as a note, so you could write down something like idea for trampoline, and I can't, so trampoline came from trapeze at circus. Right? Now that's a lot of words, but that's okay, right? As long as I'm not copying the whole sentence. Let's see. So he thought it looked fun, especially if they could find a way to continue bouncing and performing somersaults. This sparked an idea that would take George on a lifelong journey, right? Maybe wanted continuous, that's an O, continuous bouncing, okay? So just a reminder of how to take your notes, just, a few words, maybe 3 to 5 words, just so you can turn those back into your own words when you write sentences later, all right? So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna go back and you're gonna read this source one yourself, and on the document that I have here, which is the writing process document, you'll see the very top page when you open it, the Google Doc, says notes, and I have it the first page is divided source 1, source 2, source 3. So you can go ahead and take notes for this right under source 1. The only thing you may want to do when you take notes is, since you already know it's all from source one, maybe after each note, you just want to say, for instance, like on this one, these are both paragraph one. Maybe you want to put in parentheses like P1, paragraph one, or for some paragraph three, put paragraph 3. That way you don't have to go back later on, and you'll know exactly which source and which paragraph your information came from, so that you can, if you do quote information from it, you can put that right into your the body of your essay, and you won't have to go back and look. All right. I think you guys are going to be perfectly fine knowing what to do. I think taking the notes isn't going to take you very long. So hopefully you'll have time to work on other things. And I will see you guys later today.